welcome back all of you. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss the application of strain gauges. And before I proceed further, let us recap whatever we have discussed till now in the strain gauge concept. So, as we discussed that resistance of strain gauge can be written as rho L by A, and the change in resistivity can be experienced with the change in the length, area, and resistivity. So based on that, if we are considering only the change in the length of the resisting gauge, the gauge factor is going to come out as delta R by R divided by delta L by L. And if we consider the effect in the change of diameter also, then the gauge factor is going to come as 1 plus 2 mu due to the Poisson's law, because if we are applying a per unit, if we are applying a force on per unit area, so it is going to have two types of strain in x direction as well as y direction. So due to that, Poisson's law is going to come into the picture. And in the third case, if we are taking the consideration of resistivity effect as well, so in that case it will be going to named as piezoresistivity, and the strain gauge will be named as semiconductor strain gauge, and the gauge factor will come out as 1 plus 2 mu plus del rho by rho divided by delta L by L. So based on these three effects, any three of them can be used in practical applications. And in three of them, semiconductor strain gauges are mainly used where the sensitivity required is much higher, and also the semiconductor strain gauges are going to be limited within the range of stress, because as we are moving toward the higher sensitivity, the range of the strain is going to be limited. So now we'll have a look of application of metal strain gauge, and in that also, first I would like to take example, and I am taking the example as a load cell. And now if we are applying a force on this particular three-dimensional structure, this is going to expand in the linear direction, due to which it is going to produce the linear strain, and also it is going to shrink in the vertical direction, so due to which it is going to produce vertical strain. So one thing we can do is we can just simply make use of one strain gauge, and if we put it on the body of this particular cubic structure, this one particular strain gauge can be used in this manner, that if we apply a stress on it, this is going to expand in the linear direction as L plus delta L, and in the vertical direction the diameter will change as D minus delta D. But practically we usually don't prefer this particular type of effect. Instead of using a single strain gauge and having measure of both lateral strain as well as longitudinal strain, we are going to make use of only the linear effect in the in one direction alone, in using L, and we are going to use two different strain gauges. So how we are going to make use of it, let us proceed with that. So I have taken the example of load cell. As I mentioned earlier, if we are applying force on it, this is going to expand in x direction, due to which elongation is going to happen and the longitudinal strain will be produced, and due to which the strain gauge number 1 is going to feel the effect as L is going to be converted into L plus delta L, and the L will be the complete length of the strain gauge. And in case of vertical strain, we are not going to have the effect of change in the diameter. Instead, we are going to use another strain gauge, which is going to have the complete length same as horizontal strain gauge L. But as this is going to feel the compression, the length will vary as L minus delta L. So due to the longitudinal strain, the resistance of the strain gauge is going to be affected as R converted into R plus delta R in longitudinal, and in the transverse direction it is going to be as R minus delta R. And as we know that as per the Poisson's law, mu is equals to minus of E by Ax, and if we talk just about the magnitude, this is going to be mu is equals to E transverse divided by E longitudinal. So due to the transverse strain, we are going to have delta R transverse, and due to the longitudinal stress, we are going to have delta R longitudinal. And using this particular expression, we can write delta R transverse can be mu times of delta R longitudinal. So that's what I have written it here. So this configuration is going to be known as Poisson's configuration. So what we understood till now, in the Poisson's configuration we are going to make use of minimum 2 number of strain gauges. And now if we place these 2 strain gauges in a 2 sensing arm of the Wheatstone bridge, we are going to have the derivation for the output. So if we take a Wheatstone bridge which is going to have 4 arms in it, and let us take the supply voltage as Vs, and we'll consider the all resistance of the arms are as R, and we'll take the output voltage as V0 plus minus. And now as we are going to see that one strain gauge is going to feel as R plus delta R, so this will take as R plus delta R, and this one is going to feel the compression, so we'll take it as R minus delta R. So now it's just the simplification as we did in our previous lecture as well. So we'll write the expression for V0. So, and also we have to keep in mind that the voltage which we are going to sense with the help of voltmeter is going to have the infinite resistance, so that meter does not draws any current in this particular path. So we can just simply apply the voltage division rule here, and this is R plus delta R, this is R minus delta R. So now we'll take this particular point as 0 volt, so the voltage difference is Vs, so here it is going to be Vs. And now let's take this point as B and this point as A and this point as B. And now we wish to calculate the voltage output V0. So V0 is going to be voltage at point A minus voltage at point B. So voltage at point A, just using the simple voltage division, R divided by R plus R into Vs, minus voltage at point B is R minus delta R divided by R minus delta R plus delta R, and this thing is multiplied by Vs. Now R by 2R is going to be 1 by 2 minus R minus delta R divided by R minus delta R plus delta R. And this we have to take care that these delta R are not equal. This R plus delta R in longitudinal and R minus delta R transverse. So longitudinal and transverse. So longitudinal R minus delta R, transverse longitudinal. So this is transverse, this also transverse, and this is longitudinal. As we know that the relation between resistance transverse is going to be mu times of longitudinal. So we'll make use of that at a later stage. Now we'll have to simplify it, and the whole thing multiplied by Vs. R minus 2R minus delta R transverse plus delta R longitudinal minus 2 times of R, and minus will become plus 2 times of delta R transverse divided by 2 times of 2R minus delta R transverse plus delta R longitudinal. The whole thing is multiplied by Vs. And now 2R minus 2R gets cancelled, and 2 times of delta R transverse minus delta R transverse is going to become as plus delta R transverse plus delta R longitudinal divided by 4 times of R plus 2 times of delta R longitudinal minus delta R transverse. So this is the simple simplification, and Now as the changes in the resistance in longitudinal direction and transverse direction are going to be very lesser one, and already they are the difference of both of them, so it is going to be a very small value, so we can just simply cancel it from here, and the expression will simplify as Vs by 4R delta R transverse plus delta R longitudinal. And now we have one relation between transverse change in the resistance and longitudinal change in the resistance. So we'll put it as here, and then V naught will become as Vs by 4R, and delta R transverse can be written as mu times of delta R longitudinal plus delta R longitudinal. So it will come as Vs by 4 1 plus mu times of delta R longitudinal divided by R. So as we saw in case of quarter bridge, the formula was something similar, that V naught equal to Vs by 4 delta R by R. But in case of Poisson's configuration, we are not going to call it as quarter bridge. Instead we will call it as Poisson's half bridge, and the expression is going to come out as Vs by 4 1 plus mu times delta R longitudinal by R. And also we have one more configuration, Poisson's full bridge configuration. So in that, what we are going to do is we are going to make use of 4 strain gauges. So as we took the example of load cell, which is a 3-dimensional structure, and we are making use of 2 strain gauges as of now. So instead of only 2 strain gauges, we can use 2 more strain gauges at the back side of this particular structure, and we are going to have 4 strain gauges, and out of which 2 strain gauges are going to feel the effect as R plus delta R in longitudinal, and 2 are going to feel the effect as R minus delta R transverse, same as we were doing in the case of full bridge. But again here this configuration is not going to be named as full bridge. Rather it will be as Poisson's full bridge. So if we do the same derivation again, we are going to come out with the formula as Vs by 2R mu times of delta R longitudinal plus delta R. This will be simplified using this formula, so it will become as Vs by 2 1 plus mu times of delta R transverse divided by R. So this is Poisson's half bridge, and this is Poisson's full bridge. In full bridge, in the opposite arms, it is going to be R plus delta R longitudinal, and here also it will be as R plus delta R longitudinal, and as it is here R minus delta R transverse, so here also it will become as R minus delta R transverse. So in the case of Wheatstone bridges, as of now we are ended up with 5 total formulas. First 3 was related to quarter bridge, half bridge and full bridge, and now in the case of Poisson's configuration, we are going to use a combination of 2 strain gauges. So in that case, again we are going to have 2 more formulas. Poisson's half bridge, it is going to look like as quarter bridge, but in case of Poisson's half bridge, 1 plus mu term will be there, so don't confuse yourself with those formula and these formulas. Poisson's half bridge and full bridge formula will have to keep in mind. And now we'll proceed further with potentiometer. So potentiometer, it is a very simple topic, and instead of jumping into the derivations, we are going to play it as a game of resistances and simple circuit solving skills. And in potentiometer there are 2 types, circular potentiometer and linear potentiometer. And in linear potentiometer we'll discuss both the cases, without load and with load, with the help of problem. And I have drawn a simple potentiometer which is going to have a length of 100 mm and has a resistance of 1000 ohm, and it is given with a supply voltage of 10 volt, and it is the pointer is showing the position as 25 mm, and we wish to calculate what will be the indication of output voltage. So as the length is going to be 100 mm and the resistance is 1000 ohm, so the resistance per unit length is going to be 1000 ohm divided by 100 mm. So this is going to be 10 ohm per mm. So this is the resistance gradient per unit mm, how much resistance it is going to show. So for 25 mm the resistance is going to be 10 ohm per mm into 25 mm. So the value of resistance will be 250 ohm. So now it is just simple voltage division, because as we are saying, this case is as without load, and it means that the voltmeter which we are going to use is having infinite resistance, and it does not going to draw any current in this particular path. So we can just simply apply voltage division here. So this resistance is 250 ohm, and out of 1000 ohm this is going to be 750 ohm, and simple voltage division for V0 is equal to 250 divided by 250 plus 750 into voltage is 10 volts. So V0 is going to come out as 250 divided by 1000, this is 4 times, so 10 by 4. So 5 by 2 means 2.5 volts. So this is very simple. And in this second case with load, instead of having the resistance of voltmeter as infinite, we are going to have some finite resistance of our meter, and let us say the resistance is 250 ohm. So now the circuit diagram will look like this. So this is 10 volt, 750 ohm, 250 ohm, and instead of giving taking the voltage directly across 250 ohm, we are going to have one more resistance parallel as 250 ohm, because the meter is going to have finite resistance. And now we'll have to calculate the output voltage. So first we'll have to simplify this. 250 in parallel with 250 is going to be 125 ohm. So it will look like as 10 volt, 750 ohm, and this will be 125 ohm. So also with load condition is known as loading effect condition. In this case, due to the finite resistance of the meter, it is going to produce some loading on the output reading. So now the output voltage will be simple voltage division, 125 ohm divided by 125 plus 750 into 10. So 125 divided by 775, 875 into 10. So if we simplify it, it will come out as 1.428 volts. So as we can see here, the voltage was coming as 2.5 volts, and now it is going to come as 1.428 volts. So due to the finite resistance of the meter, the output voltage reading is going to be changed, and that effect we call it as loading effect. And now we wish to calculate how much percentage of error we are getting into the output. So in the case of without load condition, we took the voltmeter as ideal voltmeter, and the resistance of voltmeter was treated as infinite, and the output was coming as 2.5 volts. And in the case of with load condition, the meter is going to have finite resistance in the parallel, because voltmeter is always connected in parallel, whereas ammeter is connected in series. So it is going to have 250 ohm resistance in parallel, and due to the loading effect, it is going to generate the output voltage as 1.428 volt. So now we'll calculate what is the percentage of error with respect to the previous reading. So the error is final value minus initial value. So the final value is going to come out as 1.428 volt, and the initial value, the voltmeter was giving us 2.5 volts. So the error is going to become as minus 1.071 volts. So the percentage of error with respect to the previous value. So this is minus 1.071 divided by 2.5 into 100. So this will become as minus 4.42.8% of error this is going to give. So that's the complete idea of potentiometer. If we consider the ideal voltmeter, it is not going to produce any harm to the readings, but if we have finite resistance of the voltmeter, it is going to produce a loading effect. And how much percentage of error due to which it is generating, that we can calculate numerically. And now we'll have a look of circular potentiometers. So the idea in case of circular potentiometer is going to be as same as a linear potentiometer. The only difference which we are going to encounter is that in case of linear potentiometer, the motion of pointer was in a linear fashion, but in case of circular potentiometer, the motion is going to be in circular way. So in that also there are two possibilities. Let us say in linear case, if the pointer is moving from here to here, total 1000 mm, and the length is varying from 0 to 100 ohm. So the same thing can happen here also, that if it is provided in case of linear length, so circular length, if it is 1000 mm, the potentiometer resistance will vary from 0 to 100 ohm. And in another case, if it is given in terms of angles, let us say the total angle which the pointer can travel is 200 ohm, and the position at 10 degree, this is going to give some no deflection. So in that case, how much resistance which we are going to face? So 100 ohm for total 200 degree centigrades, 200 degree, and for 10 degree which we are going to get as 5 ohm. So in the example, we are going to make use of circular potentiometer. There is one circular potentiometer given here, whose total length is 1000 mm, and the indication at which this pointer at present is 234 mm, and the total resistance of the potentiometer is 10 ohm. And also, in addition to the circular potentiometer, there are 15 10 ohm fixed resistances are provided, and the working current in the potentiometer is given as 10 milliampere. So as the current itself is given, we need not worry about all these resistance and what is the voltage provided here. And given that this particular Vx is balanced at point number 11, so we have 11 10 ohm resistance plus the resistance of the potentiometer. So the voltage Vx is going to face the total resistance as starting from here all the way from this particular point. So the total resistance is going to come out as 11 into 10 plus, and the resistance of potentiometer, as it is having 10 ohm resistance for 1000 mm, and resistance for 234 mm will be 10 by 1000, 1 by 100, so 2.34 ohm. So 11 into 10 plus 2.34, so the total resistance will be 110 plus 2.34, so 112.34 ohm will be the total resistance faced by this voltage. And as this is having the working current as 10 milliampere, so we can just simply apply the Ohm's law. V is equal to IR. So this is the resistance 112.34 ohm, which is having 10 milliampere current passing in it. So we have to calculate the voltage Vx. So Vx is equal to 10 milliampere into 112.34 ohm. So Vx is going to be 1123.4 volts in millivolts. So in volts it will become as 1.1234 volts. So that's the complete idea of potentiometer, and so that's all for today. From tomorrow onwards we'll begin with capacitive transducers, and if you have any doubt till now, you can mention it in the comment section. Thank you.